Todd's coming in now. Okay, you're all set now.
Okay, great. So this is our first meeting of the pre-qualification committee meeting. It's recommended that we select a chair for what it's worth, just so we have somebody as we go through this.
I nominate Diana for the chair since she nominated me for the committee.
You nominated me for the committee.
Yeah, true.
I'm happy to be chair. I am not stellar at Robert's Rules of Order, so
That's okay. It's not
you've
critical.
already figured that out, but that's fine. I'm happy to be the chair.
Yeah, this is probably our only public meeting, because until we get to the end where we can say that we have a list pulled together, because none of our discussions about the different firms would be public
Right.
discussions. So kind of our kickoff meeting and then our kind of final meeting, where we kind of vote on a final list. But to get started, we have I put together a schedule, and it's kind of rough, and there's a little bit of wiggle room here, but we put the ad in the Central Register. It won't publish until the 14th, so next Wednesday. And then we're going to run it for 3 weeks. And so we're going to be receiving the packages in 3 weeks, which is September 4th. We'll re-advertise in the Central Register in the meantime, just so we can make sure that people see it. With a lot of projects not necessarily getting as many bidders and full coverage on all the different categories, we want to run it a little bit longer than the minimum. The minimum you have to run it is 2 weeks, so we'll run it for 3. And we'll monitor who's picked up the submissions, so we can see if we do have good coverage in each category. If we find that we're really not getting a good coverage on all the different categories, we'll reach out to firms who are DCAM certified and just let them know about the project, and try and build up some interest. But assuming that we receive them all on the 4th, we would begin the evaluation process. They'll be received electronically on Project Dog, and then we would download the qualifications and review them. And then we'd get together and talk about what we found on the scores for all the different categories that we'll go through in a couple minutes, and then also on the references. We're anticipating that we're not going to get enough elevator bidders or elevator submissions, so we're going to need to re-advertise again. So we'll have that probably posted in the Central Register right after they're due, so that we can meet the requirement that we have to go back out and re-advertise and look for enough in each category. Technically, we want to have 3 in each category, but elevators usually you get 0 or maybe 1. The other ones, it's kind of hit and miss. So again, we'll kind of keep an eye on it, and if we see that we're not really getting a lot of people picking up in that category, we will try and drum up some interest. But then we're anticipating finishing. Hopefully it doesn't go to the end of October. Hopefully we can finish a little earlier than that. And then we have a little bit more time to notify the contractors of their status before the town meeting and town vote. So that way we're kind of done. And then this is behind us by the time we get to the town vote. So there's a number of different categories, and I did send out the draft versions of these RFQs. And can you see this RFQ now? Yep. For the subcontractors? Yep. Okay. So here's the list of the different vendors or categories that we have to go for subs. There's a couple that aren't filled in that we didn't have either that work on our project, or it was so low that the value was under the minimum threshold. Here's our estimated values based on our DD estimates of the value of each category. I think you have to be over $20,000.
Might be
Or
25 now, but yeah,
oh,
somewhere
25.
around there. Might be
Yeah.
25. Diana, do you know that? Remember?
But
It's
I
either
don't,
20 or 25. That's what I know.
Yeah.
yeah, and I could look it up, but we didn't have anybody that low on this project. You know, we had categories that we didn't have in our scope, like terrazzo. But usually these are the main categories. And so we'll be getting, I don't know, maybe 100 different packages based on all these different categories. But there's two different qualification documents. There's the subcontractor pre-qualification, and then we have our general contractor pre-qualification. They're slightly different, but essentially the process is the same. As we kind of go through the parts of the documents, let me see if I can make this one page if it's still big enough to see. Let me know if it's too small for you guys to kind of take a look at it. But so basically we have some basic information up front, and then we get into part two, which is the things that the different contractors are going to be filling out. And the first, just some general information. Here's a list of all the different categories and their estimated value. A little description of the project. Then this is all pretty much boilerplate from DCAM. They're the DCAM form, but we put in where they can get the documents from Project Dog. We put in some information to start their label when they submit. They got to submit it with this information filled out. We're not doing a site visit. You know, the contract documents they can download, so we don't really have a bid documents available. Really, the only document is this document. You know, it's per chapter 149. We're following these guidelines. And so again, this is all boilerplate stuff from DCAM. What's important to note here, I guess, is that it's a two-part process. The first part is this pre-qualification process, which allows a bidder to bid, and then there's the bid itself. So this kind of talks about the RFQ itself. So the submission, pre-qualification committee, evaluation of the pre-qualification by the pre-qualification committee, notice to responders. So we let them know where they stand at the end. The information about when our timeline. We're anticipating that if we did, you know, get everything completed, we could notify pre-qualified firms in that early November period. And then after that, we would go through send out the bid documents, post them online and begin the bid period. And then substantial completion of the project. These dates aren't very critical for most of these contractors. This is really what they want to know. How long is this when will we know if we're pre-qualified? Evaluation procedures, criteria. So this is all This is all DCAM boilerplate stuff, but it kind of talks about the different categories, and we'll go through the categories. Might be easier to go through as we kind of take a look at some of the next following pages. Then we can take a look at the scoring sheet, and it might make a little bit more sense at how those scores interact and how each category is given. But there is you need a total score of 70 points to be pre-qualified, and you have to then have the minimum score within each category, which each subcategory. But they break it down into management experience, which this overall larger category has 50 points within it, and each firm would need to have 25 points within the management experience category in order to pass. And then we've broken the different questions, or they've broken the different questions down, is the business regarding the business owner, and we've 3 points are available for the business owner. The next one is management personnel. That's 10 points of that 50. Similar project experience is 12 points. And the one area that's not boilerplate is how we've defined a similar project. We said it shall mean a fire station, a public safety complex, DPW facility, or a municipal project in excess of 20,000 gross square feet. We want to know if firms have been terminated. That category is worth 10 points. Legal proceedings, that category is worth 10 points. Safety record, that's worth 5 points. So all those equal that 50. So a firm would need to get 25 to pass the management category. The next category is references. It's worth 30 points total. They need to get 15 within that area to be approved. So we put the project references as 22 points. We can't change this 30 or the 50 in the management, but we can manipulate the number of each subcategory as long as it totals the total points. So this is really where we're looking at contractors to see if, number one, they have the similar project experience from the previous category, but how did they perform on those projects? So we think that's the most important, and that's really what, if we do have somebody not meet the minimums, this is usually where that happens. Credit references, we'll get bank letters stating that the bank sees them as a favorable credit reference or not. That's worth 5 points. And then their public project record, 3 points. Capacity to complete the job, prior revenue, and revenue under contract is worth 20 points total. We put 15 under revenue under contract, and 5 under prior revenue. And then there's some mandatory things that they don't get points for, they just have to have them in order to be, it's a prerequisite. So they have to submit their bonding capacity, their DCAM certification, and their DCAM update statement. So if I was to take a look at a scoring sheet, let me try to make that a little smaller.
Jim, that's the Excel sheet you sent us?
Yes.
Okay.
So
Are you showing us the Excel sheet?
Yeah,
We're
so
not
I'm,
seeing it. That's okay.
all right, let me reshare because I'm on one screen now. I'm used to doing this on multiple.
Yeah.
All right, let me reshare.
As you're doing that, these are the 5 members of this committee, right? There's no one else?
No, there's other people who can join in if we decided that we set the committee up that way, but there's only 4 of us who can actually vote.
Okay, so that's who?
Yeah. Tim, when you were flashing through requirements, I swore I saw something that said 3 members from the
From the
town,
owner.
from
Yes.
the owner. So that
So,
includes Todd.
Well, me
Yeah.
as the OPM or
Mhm.
Todd, Diana and the chief.
Okay, again, I'm good with everything. I just didn't, it would flash so passed by so quickly. I wasn't sure what it said. So, okay.
Yeah, I can send you guys all the guidelines for all this.
No,
if
I
you-
don't, I believe you. Believe me. I know there's only one of me attending, so I'm not worried about anything else.
Yeah. So as we go through, we'll fill out this sheet with the different firms in each category. So masonry, it's $2.1 million. Miss Metals, 650,000. And we'll list them out, who they are, and we'll go through and put the scores in and build this form out. And so ultimately, we'll have the sub scores where we need 25 of the 50, we need 15 of the 30, and the 10 of the 20, and we need all of these as mandatory to pre-qualify somebody. And also, usually it's not an issue if you're getting the right scores in these subcategories, but you need a minimum of 70 total. And this goes through, hopefully we get 5 of each, but this
So
is,
Tim, are we gonna be filling out the score sheets with our categories, or we're gonna hand you all the information, you're gonna do it?
no, I'm going to do it.
Okay, good. I've had it
Technically,
both ways. So,
yeah, technically, I think the way that this process was set up was that everybody would be reviewing everything. And that's just
okay.
not really feasible. That's a tremendous amount of effort and work for everybody. And with or protests that we've received on this when people haven't been pre-qualified, is because things weren't done consistently. So by having different people doing different reviews, the scoring, even though it's kind of spelled out in the RFQ how it's supposed to be done, there's sometimes inconsistency. So it's just better that one group or person go through this, and we can present all the information to the overall committee, and then the overall committee votes to approve or not approve somebody as being pre-qualified. So I think it's just easier for Colliers to take that on, so that we avoid a protest and a delay. Not saying that we won't get them, but we're trying to minimize it. So on references, in the past, it's been questioned, well, your scoring matrix is set up that you get the full 22 points if all your references are good. So if we were to just keep checking references until we got enough negative references to knock their score down, that's how they're saying, like, well, you can just hunt for negative references and disqualify me. So we want to just spell out that, look, we're going to look for 5 references from each contractor. We can't penalize a firm if their references don't respond. And typically we're going to go after architects and OPMs because they have more of the day-to-day detail of projects. So that's important that we talk about that, of how we're looking at these, and that everybody's on the same page, so that if somebody were to try and find a reason, if they didn't get pre-qualified and come back and challenge our process, that we've talked through it. So that's kind of why we're kind of going through this today. So if I'm going to stop sharing again, and I'm going to try and go back to the other forms to show you the second half of those other forms and where the scoring is spelled out. So this first section that we've gone through, can you guys see this one? So it just told you how many points you get per category, but the next section in this document So this is what the contractors fill out and submit. And again, they check off which category they're submitting on. Sometimes you get contractors that'll submit in one category, HVAC and plumbing. Sometimes it's the same company, so they have to submit two separate submissions. They can't just submit one. They have to check one and submit, and so they'd have to submit two packages. But here's where we kind of really spell out how we're scoring each one. So this one's worth management, or we'll go up to here, business owners, 3 points. So at least one principal of the subcontractor has 5 or more consecutive years employed with the subcontractor, you get the 3 points. And then it spells out our rationale. You have to kind of explain. People can submit their pre-qualification package, but if they don't know how you're scoring it, we have to show them how we're scoring it, and then we have to be consistent with how we apply that. So that one we didn't deem as significant an issue as others, so we only gave it 3 points. Management personnel, this is who you're going to have on your project, assigned to your project. We gave 10 points because we thought it's more important. So at least one management person of the contractor who's worked with a similar project has 10 or more consecutive years, then they got 10 points, and then so forth, going down to 0 points.
So, Tim, in your number 1 there, you talk about new public works facility.
Yeah, that's
Can you, I just worry that people will start saying, wait a minute. I know you refer to it as part of the criteria, but there could be, I suggest a word search.
I think that was probably a leftover that we overlooked.
You defined, maybe just call it municipal or something, just however you defined it before, so.
I think we'll just remove that, a similar project.
Yeah, okay.
So that's management personnel, similar project experience, 12 points. They've successfully completed work on construction of at least 5 similar projects within the last 7 years. They get the full 12 points. They're not going to need, we're trying to keep it targeted, but still keep it broad enough where we can get some people in. Terminations, have they ever been terminated? If they've never been terminated, they get the 10 points. Within the past 10 years, if they have been terminated, there's a 1 point category and then a 0. Legal proceedings, again, we gave it 10 points, but legal proceedings, the more work you do, the more likely you are to get somebody challenging you, or so it's kind of a hard one unless it's significant legal things. If it's a couple OSHA violations, it's not like they weren't paying their workers the correct wages, or they were embroiled in some larger issues. So that one's a little bit tougher, but if they have no legal proceedings, they get the 10 points. No legal proceedings or administrative proceedings are pending or have been concluded adversely. And that's really what it comes if they have some adversely, that's come back and it's been closed and it's against them, then they start losing points. Safety, again, it's not as critical, but it is indicative of, hey, a company, are they kind of well organized? Are they safety conscious? So there's lowered it to 5 points. And then there's spelled out with their safety mods that we're asking them to submit. The references, again, this is where we really put a lot of emphasis on, all references are favorable. And again, we're looking for 5. 1 unfavorable of that 5, then they drop down to 15. 2 unfavorable, they drop down to 5. So this is worth 22 of the 30. So if they're only getting 5 here, they can only get 8 more points. that's not going to be enough to pass this category. So this is really where if we reached out to 5 firms, 5 references, and 2 of them came back negative, this firm would not be pre-qualified.
Tim, is Colliers doing all of the reference checking?
Yes,
Okay.
and we'll try and do that electronically.
Okay.
We used to call everybody, and a million phone calls, and it was just it just took a long time, and you didn't always get everybody. So we send out emails, and we usually get pretty good response. Sometimes, though, some trades are better at paperwork than others and provide you all the information you need. Others, like painters, for whatever reason, they're still submitting their stuff hand done, and they just submit the same information from pre-qual package to pre-qual package, and it's probably old, and the references aren't, you don't hear back from them. But the AG has made it pretty clear that you can't penalize the firm because you didn't hear back from the references. So what we do try and do, if we don't hear back, we will try and reach out to the contractor and either get new information or ask them to reach out to the reference and give them a heads up that we're going to be sending them something, and try and get a response. But sometimes we only hear back from 3 references, and if they're all 3 are good, they get the full amount of points. But as we go through this and we get references back, we can, we'll let you know which ones those are. But I would imagine most of the people we're going to be hearing from, we've pre-qualified or reviewed their information in the past. Public project record is just, have they done public work? Capacity to complete the job, prior revenue, and then revenue under contract. We have these criteria that spell out how we're going to be scoring them, so they can't come back and say, well, what's the passing, why did I fail? It should be pretty straightforward and clear. But again, our goal isn't to limit the bidding pool. Our goal is to allow as many bidders as we can get for each category. But this is really designed that if there's somebody that's really has some issues, that they're flushed out with this process, and we can limit it. Even if we let them through and we pre-qualify them, and they go through the bid process and they're the low bidder, but you still have reservations about them, there's still an opportunity to not accept their bid at the end. It's rare, but there is an option or an opportunity to do that. This was always, I guess, when this first came out, or previous versions of the guidelines on how to use this, it did say that this was designed to weed out some bad performing contractors. And now the AG's interpretations on protests have really kind of made it more difficult to have more. She's really kind of limited the latitude you have with this, and reinforced the fact that you do have the opportunity later. But if somebody's a low bidder, it's significantly low. It's hard to then go back to the community and say, well, even though they're low, we think you should spend extra money to go with this other guy. So this process is, maybe it needs to be revised, but it's trying to work with the way they've set it up and the way they're interpreting it now. And so the other one is very similar. It's really the GC one. Is similar, but it's slightly different. Honestly, this is where we would spend a lot more time reviewing references and really digging in, because the bigger trades, maybe the MEPs, and the GCs. This is, you want to make sure that you're getting somebody that doesn't have any kind of issues that they can point to.
Tim, can I ask a question about what you just mentioned with regard to mechanical contractors?
Sure.
Do you think the fact that we're going with geothermal would indicate that we need mechanical firms with that experience?
It would be good if they had that experience, but I don't know that we can really require it. They may have subs that they reach out to for certain work. I don't know, Janet, if any of this would be paragraph E.
Yeah.
Paragraph E is filed subbidders cannot sub out their work. They have to do it. Filed subbidders, that is. You can't have a sub unless it's spelled out in the specifications. So with HVAC, you often have insulators, balancers, controls, contractors listed as paragraph E. So they're saying this is who we're going to carry, and it's spelled out in the spec that they're allowed to. But a painter can't say, "Oh, I got too much work. I'm going to have this other guy do it." They can't shop it and farm it out to somebody else. So unless it's spelled out as a paragraph E work, that hey, maybe we have a well driller, or maybe that falls under site, and then therefore it's you can have, that's not a filed subcategory, and so the GC can pick whoever they want to at least drill the wells, but the HVAC guy's got to do all the connections and the yeah. So it really depends on how the engineer puts it together.
I mean, if it all fall under one category, but it might not. We coordinate with the civil and the plumbing and different
Right.
HVAC, whatever.
You'd have to put that into all of those different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think more and more people are doing geothermal, so probably I hope, we've done it quite a bit recently, but again, hard to know.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Thank you.
So again, the same old boilerplate stuff. Here's the the administration section, or the timeline, evaluation procedures. Then we start getting into the points again. The points are 50. And then the different categories: management personnel, similar project experience, terminations, legal, safety record, MBE, WBE. That's one that's not in the filed subbid section. This is only on the GCs. But then references, again, 30 points total, and again, the GC is 22. Credit reference, public project, the two financial questions, and then the mandatory items. And then here's the second section where they, that they fill out and submit. And again, we spell out how we're going to be scoring them.
So,
And then they have all, these are the forms that they'll be filling out and submitting. So
the RFQ form is a DCAM form, but the weight that we put on the scoring is our weight.
yeah, so this is the DCAM form, and it's on the footer here. So let me go back to the.
I got it. So it's like if we say similar projects is worth 12 points, that's because that's what we chose to weigh that at.
Yeah.
The 15 points or 10 points. I got it.
Yeah, so that first category worth 50 points.
Yep.
We can divvy up that 50 however we want amongst those 6 questions that were required to how we break it down. And so could we have made similar project experience worth 30 points? Yes, we could have. And then a firm that didn't do a fire station or DPW wouldn't get a score, and then they'd be thrown out. And we didn't want to do that. We wanted to keep it. You can get a good firm that just hasn't built a fire station, but they build a lot of good buildings. But where we did do that and focused on tailoring this to be able to not pre-qualify a firm that didn't have good references.
Yeah, that makes
So
sense.
that's really where we targeted it.
Okay.
And that's really the only way to really get somebody out if you're worried about somebody. And some of these firms, they may not have the bonding capacity, or they may not do this level or this size work, but they try and throw their hat in the ring. And, we may unfortunately have to just tell them that, no, you're not pre-qualified because this isn't an appropriate size project for you. On school projects, that comes up a lot where, your HVAC package could be, $3 million, and it's a firm in town. And so they want to throw their hat in the ring, and they do work on the schools, but they change the filters and troubleshoot when you have problems, but they're not equipped to install new or build a new building at a $3 million package, because that's double what their annual revenue is. So you want to make sure that, they do that type of work. It's the right size, it's the right fit. But again, we get 100 packages. If we don't pre-qualify 4 firms, that would be a lot. 98, 99% get pre-qualified. So I know it's a lot of information, and it's and most of it is we don't have much choice or any kind of ability to modify it. So but if you have questions on it, let me know. Again, because we're putting so much emphasis on pre-qualification or of the references, want to spell out that, look, we're going to look for 5 references, and we're going to look for OPMs and architects. The other things that we talked about are where we have the opportunity to customize this, and it was really on the definition of the project and how we score, how we score the people. So the only way somebody can protest this is if they think we're being arbitrary or capricious, or they just, usually if there's a GC that we didn't pre-qualify and they were upset about it, they would do a freedom of information request and request everybody else's scores. And then they'd go through and try and figure out to see if we weren't consistent in our process. So that's why we're recommending that these colliers go through and do all the references the same way and go through the scoring. And then we present and go through each firm with the group. And then the group is all looking at the same information. All the information was assembled and tabulated the same way, and it's consistent.
So are we all going to review all the submissions though?
You certainly can. You can keep your own score, but we will go through and send out reference requests. And our reference requests are, and I don't have a copy of that, but usually it's about 9 questions. And it's, how did you find this firm's management? How did you find this firm's supply of manpower? How did you find their treatment of change orders? And we give a 0 to 5 score, 5 being the best, 0 being the worst. And we put on there that we define a negative score of below 3.0 or 2.5 or whatever we determine. But I would say probably 3.0 is where we would want to put it. If they're just average, if they're just a 2.5, maybe we don't want to work with them. If they're not going to get a 4 or 5, then if their average score on 5 projects, then it's probably not somebody we really want to have. So that's kind of our philosophy on how we do that. And it's
Tim, can I ask a question?
Sure.
In the description at the very beginning, yours was quite brief. I've written much more elaborate ones. to give people a sense, since they're not gonna be getting the drawings, I mean, they can go online and see what they can see from a town, but like, for instance, we have $2 million worth of masonry here. Is it important to describe something a little bit about products or like the geothermal or something to give them a hint, does that help at all, or do you think not see that so?
I think this is a package thing that these guys have on the shelf,
don't care.
and they
Yeah,
just
definitely. Yeah, years ago when
yeah
it used to be in pencil, before you'd open it, there was somebody who always used purple ink. We knew right away who it was because somebody used purple ink.
yeah. I mean,
Always,
and
yeah.
in the past before it was computerized, like they might scan their
Oh, yeah, and they
one
would twist
version.
it and turn
Yeah, it was photocopied a million times, and
times, and it's hard to read. Yeah, exactly. So
yeah,
this will
so
be an improvement. So
yeah, I think this is just kind of one of those perfunctory things that they just have to get out of the way, and they're not really reading or looking at it. And a lot of times they submit and they put in their pre-qualification to leave the option open. They're going to go after a bunch of work for next year, and they're going to go after everything they can until they kind of fill up their schedule. And so they're going to pre-qualify, and then in the meantime, if they win a bid or something, they may not submit a bid on our project.
exactly. Yep. That's why you
So
want
that
as many as possible.
yeah, so
So,
that happens too. I mean, we've had issues where, hey, we didn't get any Miss Metals guys. We only got two, and so then we had to re-advertise and go back out and try and get more. Because if you only get two and you don't know that those guys are even going to bid, but per the requirements, you do need to, I think, get three.
Yeah, that's what I was
Uh,
gonna ask you. What is the requirement? Is it 3? I
yeah,
used to think it was 3.
yeah,
So I didn't know if it's changed. 3, Diana, yeah, okay.
yeah. If not, you have to re-advertise and go back out. So,
And then the second time, if you get no more, then you got to stick with what you got, right? I guess.
yeah, and if you don't
Can't
get any, you can,
sign it to the
like
contract.
elevators, you can just assign it to the general contractor.
Didn't they just have an issue down in Rhode Island where they were doing a bridge and they got 0 people that bid on it?
I
Oh,
wouldn't be
That-
surprised.
I wouldn't be
Yeah,
surprised.
no one
Well,
bid.
I'm doing a public job for a university and we got like one bidder. And
Okay.
one bidder on a 23-story, it was a renovation, but that's all they got. And they were happy at least because they knew the person and they were like, okay, we're good. I was like,
Well,
you sure? And
we had
that's
something similar. We had a library project, $45 million, one bidder. It was the preferred bidder. Unfortunately, it was way over budget. So they couldn't move forward.
That's the problem.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
if
we've
they
already contacted the person's helping us with the elevator. To remind them, we'll send out another elaborate. Put your
Yeah,
it doesn't mean you're getting a 3.
We'll get one elevator event at
Yeah.
least.
yeah, I mean, sometimes we've only gotten one bidder in a category, but we had pre-qualified 5 and we only got one, and they were within budget, so there was no reason to not go with them. But you don't really know if they knew the other guys weren't bidding, or they knew the other guys had just won these other big jobs, and so that
Well,
they didn't have to sharpen their pencil as much as they needed to. You just never
Yeah.
know. But
I mean, I just had a project in a public bid renovation and we got one bidder for roofing. And we were, what did we do? And he admitted that he knew that no one else was bidding.
yeah,
And he also, because he had been talking to all the reps about materials and you're the only one calling, you're the only one calling. And it was tricky. It was a tricky thing. And he knew it, and it was high. It was 2-3 times what we estimated. But I talked to him because I wanted to make sure, we had an opportunity to, question him. And he knew every blessed detail on the project. He had studied it, and I felt like he actually put together, he was being as fair as he could. I'm sure he made a bundle, but and we, I thought, why do I have somebody who looked at the details and then somebody threw in a number? So anyhow, so it could go any other way. Hopefully we'll get enough people that we won't have to worry about such things. Do you had all the categories in there? Did you have 13 categories for the file submitters?
Let me just take a look at that again.
Yeah, 13. I just want to make sure. You have 13. I mean, you can obviously read it. What I'm reading is I'm looking at the TCI estimate, and he puts a category that says file submit, and then there are, like waterproofing, part of the one part, of 07. So some of them are file submit, but they are attached to something else. So you know.
It looks like we have 15 on what you
Yeah,
said.
so that's why I wanted to see what you had. I thought there were more, but I couldn't, the way you were moving the screen, I couldn't count it at the same time. So you
Yeah,
have
we have
masonry,
15.
you have masonry,
Yep.
mist metals,
Yep.
waterproofing, damp-proofing, and caulking,
Roofing, metal
roofing and
windows.
flashing, acoustic tile,
Yep.
Janet,
tile.
you skipped glass and glazing though. They have.
Yeah, I don't.
And metal
don't
windows.
have- Well, I'm not sure. He doesn't have them as filed sub-it. So those were the, I'm wondering, depending on what kind of a window it is, sometimes they're filed sub-it and sometimes they're not. If these are punched openings, they might be pre-glazed. I'm not sure. So I'd have to look. I can ask Jerry. So glass and glazing, and what was the other one, Tim?
Well, we had glass and glazing at $600,000.
Mhm.
So
It doesn't
um,
matter unless it doesn't fall in the category, But you said glass
no,
and glazing, and what was the other one? Glass and glazing and windows?
yeah,
Janet?
metal windows.
Metal windows.
So metal windows we had is 1.3 million.
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't be, I'm not surprised. I'm just saying, I don't know. So, and then I had acoustic tile, resilient painting, elevator, fire suppression, plumbing, HVAC, and electrical. So that accounts, those two account for my difference between 13 and 15. So I have to read, like I always get confused with the windows. Some of them, these are not storefronts. They're storefront, but it's small. It's mostly, units. They're going in. Sometimes those are doing. I'll have to check. I'll check.
Yeah, I mean, worst case is we don't need to go through that process, but
Yes.
we can recheck them all. But at this point,
I noticed there was a difference, and I'm just looking at Jerry's, and there's categories on top of categories.
yeah, but if a category is over 20 or 25,000,
25.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
But it doesn't matter because we're way over.
yeah,
It
or
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter in these cases what the number is. It just matters what if it fits the category, sort of thing. So, just because every window does not fall into windows, just because you do windows, So,
yeah.
anywho, well, are you gonna?
Well, I
Okay.
was just gonna say, like, if anybody is interested, this was updated in 2018. This is put out by DCAM, and it's the guidelines for the general contractor, subcontractor pre-qualification. It kind of breaks it all down. So I can send this to you guys if so if you had a question or you're interested in looking it up, but a lot of this is all spelled out here.
Sometimes when there's like a category that sits on the edge of what category it should be, we throw it into the file submit so we don't get a challenge. But
yeah.
or the
I mean,
dollar amount is right on the edge, we throw it in.
Yeah, because
throw it out.
we're using estimated dollar values, but
Yeah, sure.
the dollar values in state statutes are old and haven't really kept up with what the current values are now. So hopefully they'll be raising some of these thresholds for just procurement processes, that you can just get three quotes. Hopefully that if we're going from, I don't know if that's 25 or 50,000 at this point, but all those values have to kind of raise, and there's always a little bit of a lag in doing that.
Oh my God, it was at $20,000. You know, there's nothing that costs $20,000. This
Yeah.
first night, you know, and they went to 25, and yeah, you could have gone a little higher.
Yeah, so
Okay,
Diane,
I'll
if you
ask, I'll
want to
look
look at certain trades or you're interested in some of the architectural items, or, you know, by all means, you know, um, it's just, I was just offering it up that we could do all of them just for ease and consistency, but we don't have to do it that way. Or Janet, if there's something that you're concerned about or interested in, and certainly we could still do it and then compare notes afterwards of what you guys see. But a lot of this is, you know, that whole management category is really kind of just, you know, we have to spell out how we're going to score them, and so it should be pretty easy to see if they pre-qualify or not. There's not a lot of interpretation.
I mean, when I've done this, everyone on the committee has done at least a chunk of them. But if you don't mind sending them to me, that would be great.
Yeah, so we'll get a link to Project Dog. I will say, because we're in a relatively smaller group here, when we had our largest problem of any projects I've worked on, it was when we gave a stack. We gave like 2 GCs and a number of, maybe 2 categories of the filed subbidders to different people on the committee. And one of the committee members, who was actually an OPM for a different firm, took his scores that he had gotten for the job that he was currently working on his firm, and used those scores for the people who submitted.
Oh.
And then and that's when we were still calling references and not doing the email blast with the survey. And he didn't follow the script and ask those 9 questions and the scores. He just said, well, would you want to work with them again? And if they didn't want to work with them again, I said, they're no good. And if we would. And so, of course, we were down at the IG's office in a protest, and it, you know, delayed the project. It was, you know, it wasn't like he was kind of, you know, questionable in his methods. He was way off.
Yeah.
So,
The consistency is so important.
yeah.
I mean, I don't need to be calling any references. I'm thrilled that you're doing that. But I would still like to take a look at them. Janet.
I think the concept
I've
of,
done it a bunch of different ways.
I think the concept of Collier's doing it overall and then us looking at it and then giving our feedback makes sense.
Right. No, I totally agree. I think that process is great, but I would like to.
Yeah, we probably want to run some of this stuff by Scott, just because he's worked with a lot of different vendors in the area, and they're going to be submitting on this. And if he's had negative experiences, that would be good to know. Or if he's had good experiences, that would be good to know. He may not be able to vote on this committee, but he can certainly provide feedback. And the IG's office has said repeatedly that firsthand experience is worth more than a reference.
So I would assume we could do the same with planning or with code enforcement as well.
Yeah. If they have somebody that, hey, this guy, he never follows up, he never, you know, submits, you know, then that's not somebody that we want to.
But Janet also may have the same.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you know, we have
too.
a lot of contractors that we worked with over the years, and you know, some you like and some you don't, but some you like. I mean, you don't like, but they're good contractors, and you got to like.
And they're qualified.
And they're qualified, so you have to put that aside. You know, some firms never close out projects. We've got a couple of projects that one project they think it's been done for 15 years. They're doing a renovation, and we've never closed out the project. Never got project closed out, you know, sort of thing. So you know, things like that happen, and you know, a couple of firms that. You know, there's probably no way we could toss them out, but they might be scared if they see our name on the drawings.
Yeah,
There's
you
a
know,
whole lot of good.
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing I want to look at is the DCAM update statements, because there's
yes
additional information there that certainly relates to the scoring. That's not necessarily in, you know, each schedule of their RFQ response, right?
Yeah, I like to look at that. It tells you what they're working on now.
Exactly.
It tells you, you know, you know, their bonding capacity versus what they're working on and how much, what the percentage of it is. So really, if everything's new for them, how are they gonna devote time? I mean, there's a lot of things to glean from looking at this thing with a little bit of an eye. I've also worked on these where, like I've been given all the,
The
utility.
plumbing and
Yeah, I mean, it's like, oh my God, but you do whatever you can to get.
That was our middle ground. We went from
Yeah.
doing what I described, where we gave the GC and a couple packages to
Yeah.
everybody on the committee, to then just giving MEPs or any kind of architectural significant stuff to the architect, and figuring that you guys could pass on the MEPs to your engineers too, if you needed to.
Yeah.
But Miss Metals we would give to a layperson on the committee because it's a minor category.
two of them.
An expensive category, but a minor category.
But
Yeah,
to your point, even when you do that, if they're looking at like management personnel, I mean, you guys, this is a great RFQ because you spelled out absolutely every single point. So it's easy to sort of agree on what the score should be. So I appreciate that a lot. It's not
Yeah.
always in the RFQs.
the
Yeah,
other thing is
objective scoring is much better than subjective, right? We can look at it and say, okay, they meet this. That's easy. Not,
Exactly, yeah.
yeah.
well, and so that's the tricky part is the DCAM provides you with this template to use. And they say, okay, here's 50 points in this category. You can determine how you're going to split up that category, but also how you score within each category. They don't provide that. And so you're trying to come up with something that makes sense, that has a graduated level, so that you can be, have something in the middle ground, not just all or nothing. But you have to spell it out so that if it gets challenged, you can stand behind it. And that's not necessarily easy. And so we've had questions or categories that we've had for years and no one ever blinked an eye at. And then one time somebody brings it up as, hey, that's not really a good way of doing things. That's not right. That's not fair. And they got, the ruling came in their favor, and we've had to change it. So until it gets challenged, it's worked for years. As far as we know, it's okay. But you never know. So we try and be as transparent as we can and try and spell out as much of that as we can, because I have seen these forms out there where we didn't spell out how we were scoring the firms, and I think that opens you up to a challenge from a firm that maybe didn't get pre-qualified. But again, we're going to end up pre-qualifying 98% of these firms. So if there's a GC that's had some major problems and we maybe didn't pre-qualify them, that's where you would get your challenge. Usually a filed sub bidder will just move on. There's enough jobs out there that they'll go after something else. But a GC where they were looking at the big pick, the whole project, that's where you're more likely to get a challenge if you were to get one. So that's all I had. These are coming in on the 4th, did I say, Todd? Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're coming in electronically, so we'll get a link and be able to download all the documents from Project Dog. What I will point out, though, is if everybody's looking at these documents, they are not public information. There are parts of them are and parts of them aren't. And so we have to be careful if anybody was to do a Freedom of Information request, how we respond to that. We would have to break out the financial information. We would have to break out the DCAM update statement. So, we'll deal with that if it comes, but just wanted to put it out there.
Okay. I will do the minutes for this meeting and get them to you guys.
Okay, and just to make sure you include we're going to look for 5 references, OPMs and architects. And if that's in the meeting minutes, that shows that that's where we agreed upon that before we started reviewing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be great. And so I don't think we need to schedule another meeting, but once they come in and we see what kind of coverage we have, and we can then take a little bit of time to at least get a first round started, and then we can talk about how we want to structure our meetings going forward. Take a chunk at a time, and target these 3 trades for the first meeting, the next 3 trades for the next meeting, or what, or however we decide to do it.
I have to say, I'm a little confused exactly what I'm going to be asked to do here. I mean, I can review anything, but like,
Yeah.
feel that way, Diane? I mean, I haven't done these
Yeah.
quite a few
Well,
times at all different forms.
Like all the pages. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what am I doing?
uh,
You're doing the references and you're doing this.
we were going to do everything.
Yes, that's my.
And so
But
I guess in the end, we're going to ask that we get together at some point and review the information, and that you're comfortable enough with either what we provide or what other investigations you've done to be able to vote to approve or not approve those firms. So
okay.
I'll leave it to you as to what categories you might want to dig into. Certainly, I think it's important that you take a look at all the GCs for sure.
I was going to say the GCs to me are critical. I mean, the thoughts of there's
We should probably all take a look at the packages for the GCs.
Yeah.
And just you'll be able to see what other projects they have, what's almost complete and they've gotten since the last time they got DCAM certified. So they'll get DCAM certified, doesn't mean that they're DCAM pre-qualified. And that's because that's kind of specific to our project.
I mean, I'd be interested, for instance, like Diane asked about the geothermal, that people like in any of their project descriptions or things that they build in any of that into any of their projects now, or masons. I mean, we have a lot of critical detail on masonry. I don't know, we got a good mason out there, it'd be, that I might look at those categories because I mean, having spent the day doing masonry details or having conversations about rollout courses and headers and everything, you want to make sure somebody's going to put a good package together.
And that's the rub, is you can look at that, but it's going to be, okay, their management guy, who their management guy is, how many years has he been with them, what's their safety record? Is that telling you anything about his ability to follow a detail? No,
but it might make me look at his package and see what his references are, his current projects are, and then you can look at those current projects and say, well, what are those current projects? Is it all block that's going to be hidden behind the walls? Or is it masonry that's going to be visible on the outside?
Yeah, so the references, yeah, the references is where hopefully we would get some of that detail.
Yeah.
But again, if we were to look for more references for that guy, we got to look for more references for everybody.
No, I'm happy with your approach. I'm just saying that's what I'd be looking for, to make sure they had, they weren't this guy who's been blocking up, the middle of, municipal structures of DPWs and painting them as opposed to people who are used to doing some fine-tune work.
Well, I appreciate you guys saying that, hey, I would feel more comfortable doing this and looking into this, because I'm not trying to take over the process. I'm just trying to, I'm just trying to streamline it as much as we can. And so whatever, if you guys think that we need to dig into something, one category or one group of contractors, or our process needs to change because you don't feel like you have enough information to be able to vote, then we can do that. I don't want to dictate how we go through this, but this is just a suggestion, and it's worked in the past.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm sure Diane has had the experience where they get packaged and I'm the reference.
Yeah, we get a lot of those. Yeah. I mean, I'm happy for you all to do that. Like,
me too.
I honestly, though, if I go through them, like, I probably will just score them just as a way to check off what I've looked at. But I'm happy to come to the meeting and hear what you have, and
me too.
Any questions, then we can talk about it then. But I'm thrilled that you're going to do as much as you're going to do.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
I just want to do a little due diligence for my own self. Yeah.
We're not. I mean, we would rather not do this. And then honestly, I'm at a point where I question the use of this process.
Yeah, it's got some,
It needs to be refined.
It does.
Yeah.
needs to work.
And it is a lot of work, but it's it seems to have been what we've kind of worked our way towards, and now seems to work. But yeah, no, I'll happy to any input or thoughts that you guys might have as we start looking at them and receiving them and go through them.
Okay, thank you. I'm with Diana. I mean, less I have to make, less telephone calls I have to make.
Yeah.
You know,
that's a huge one.
honestly, we have tried to automate it too. You know, when we used to have to do a lot more, we send out blasts and things like that. And sometimes we're successful, and you know, other times we had to back it up with phone calls, and it takes a long time. And, you know, I like your method here. So,
Well, we've tried like sending direct emails. We've done SurveyMonkey or some other kind of survey software. I know that Bid Docs Online has tried to automate this, and what they do is they just have a history or a library of references they've received in the past. And if this contractor is applying, you know, trying to pre-qualify for this job, they may have gotten references for that guy for some other job, and they're going to use those. And I don't understand how the MS or the IG's office is allowing that.
yeah, that shouldn't.
That shouldn't.
But I know that's how they were doing it. So, because I get a ton of, you know, reference requests from them, and they just have this big database. So, you know, if I had, you know, if like you said, like if we were trying to find out how a mason is, and it's for the most part, it's not a masonry building. It's, you know, this is a, you know, you want to be job specific because this is you know, it's a brick building. There's a lot of masonry. There's a lot of different details. It's not just a box that has corbelling or setbacks or design in the sidewall or something. Yeah, you want that information.
Yeah, I'm good.
Just a couple of things I meant to tell earlier. So when you sent out the RFQ and the posting, I think I mentioned to you all, but I just want to make sure that I, at least for the meeting purposes, that we are posting it up on the town website, and it'll be linked off of our project site, but it'll just be the link to the external project dog for people to submit. But that way, if people do come into the fire station project page on our site, or come into the RFQ site or RFP site on the town website, they can get there as well. And
yeah, which is good.
Yep, that'll go up the same time, the 14th, the same time that's going to be posted on the in the general ledger.
What we want to avoid is sending it out or having it available to people who are picking it up who don't get it through Project Dog, because Project Dog is going to send out all the addenda. So we want them to have the master list. So
everything's going through there. That's
directing them that way is the way to go.
Okay.
The other thing we're going to need to do is advertise in a local paper.
We did that. It's going into the Worcester. It just got done today. Got put in today.
Great. And then combis.
And it's got put in combis yesterday.
Oh,
okay. Perfect.
Get your bases covered.
Yeah.
I would love to take the credit, but it's all Lorraine. I said, Lorraine, do this. I said, okay.
Yeah, combis, we can't really get in that. You know, the central register, you know, we can do, and we did that. But then you guys are always probably posting ads or legal notices, so you kind of know where to go on the which local paper is the prevailing in your area.
Okay.
I'd be curious nowadays who uses any of those sources. Like,
no, I know.
You know.
Central Register?
No, other than Central Register.
Oh, okay,
You
yeah.
know,
Well, use that one.
I don't post job openings in a newspaper anymore. I can post it in social media and have it spread 10 times faster than it would ever.
Yeah.
You know, anyone would see it on a newspaper.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Of course.
Well, you want to make sure they have your fax number so they can fax in their stuff, right?
Well, I logged on to Project Dog today and it wanted my fax number, and I was like, anyway, that was surprising. But I know
that's that dusty machine in the corner, you know.
We don't have one. Anyway.
Yeah.
We get
our copier now.
We get a menu every once in a while. I see this, you know, there's something in that thing.
You'd be surprised though, there are like doctor's offices. You
Yes.
cannot, you have to fax. You
Yes.
Schools,
cannot
schools still
email.
need a wired, a copper
Yes, a wired-
connection for the
yeah.
fax machine because of HIPAA, that, so you can't
Yes.
just forward that
Yeah.
information.
I remember somebody said, a fax, what's a fax, something, what's a fax machine? And I said, you keep one because if you have to do a doctor, or something like that, you gotta have that wire connection. Yeah. So when we got our new copier last year or something, that faxes through that all, we have an antique fax sitting over in the corner now, but we still, it all comes through. So anyhow, so, okay. All
Okay.
right, I am good.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we're adjourned.
Thank you.
All
Thanks,
right.
Matt.
Well, thanks for
Everybody have a
everybody for
good
taking your
weekend.
time on a Friday afternoon.
And I will check to see if